and every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists, the terrorists, the terrorists.
Thousands of Americans were arrested for opposing the war on moral and ethical grounds. One of them was Eugene Debs, four-time socialist candidate for president. After Debs made a speech against the war, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
The Wilson administration supported and passed an Espionage Act and later a Sedition Act, both of which limited free speech in this country. Under the provisions of that act, the Wilson administration could arrest anyone that spoke out against the war, anyone who spoke out against Wilson's policies, anyone who spoke out against conscription.
On September 30th, 1917, in an event staged for newsreel cameras, President Wilson presided over the first draft since the Civil War.
Newsreel cameras. See, they were at it from the beginning.
With hundreds of thousands of young men destined for the killing fields of Europe, Wilson and his advisors were deeply worried about how the country would react. They launched the Committee for Public Information, a propaganda agency charged with whipping up support for the war. Hollywood stars like Charlie Chaplin were enlisted in the effort.
Interestingly enough, all of the things that were put in place, the income tax, the Federal Reserve, crime syndicates, entire operation, has weakened the American people, has weakened our country by having illusions of growth that are really just bubbles that they burst and then they consolidate more power each time. Because of this manipulation of the money supply and the stock market and everything else that goes along with the Great Depression.
To publicize a Red Cross effort to increase wool production, Edith opened the White House lawn to dozens of grazing sheep. Most of the country was soon firmly behind their president and the war.
Get a load of this Americanized Nazi propaganda song. Sounds a lot like what's going on today with Obama. I mean, maybe Obama's related to Wilson.
The tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside the stock exchange are due to the greatest crash in the history of the New York Stock Exchange.
On Friday, March 22nd, all eyes were on that august government body in Washington, the Federal Reserve Board.
The Federal Reserve is not a government body. It has nothing to do with our government, but yet, you see how they manipulate the truth.
The board distrusted the boom. They saw the speculation as reckless and dangerous because it was based more and more on the shaky foundation of borrowed money, margin. The board had the power to curb the borrowing, but the market was now dependent on borrowed money. Without margin, it would collapse. The board met day after day.
As I illustrated earlier, the Federal Reserve was set up as a fraud. And as illustrated in the American Experience documentary about Woodrow Wilson, saying that it was created to make it easier for the average American to get loans. Now they're contradicting that, saying that all these margin loans are a problem. Well, they created the problem. That's, again, the Hegelian dialectic. They created the problem, making it easier for Americans to get these loans, these margin loans, and now the margin loans are a problem. The purpose, of course, was to control the money and credit of the United States and to bring the people, we the people of the United States, to serfdom. 100 years of slavery, mass murder, and genocide is enough. And we must end the Fed. Does this all sound familiar? these bailouts and rallies and then collapses. Pay attention, ladies and gentlemen.
With everyone trying to borrow money to cover the falling value of their stocks, there was a credit crunch. Interest rates soared. At 20%, few people could afford to borrow more money. The boom was about to collapse like a house of cards. Charlie Mitchell was horrified. His success, his entire career, his personal fortune had been based on a rising market. If nobody else was going to stop the crash, Charles Mitchell would.
Father, at that point, stepped in and announced that the National City Bank would provide $25 million of credit, which was all very well and very necessary, but he added the fateful words, whatever the Federal Reserve Board thinks. And Senator Carter Glass, who had been sort of the father of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, took that as a direct slap across the face. But whatever Senator Glass thought, immediately the credit crisis was alleviated. In fact, within the next 24 hours, call money went from 20% to 8%, and that stopped the panic then in March.
The next day, the market rallied. The Federal Reserve Board remained silent, tacitly accepting defeat. The hero of the day was Charlie Mitchell. He had single-handedly stopped the crash of '29. With the start of the baseball season, people quickly forgot the break in the market. New events filled the papers. There was a crisis in Nicaragua, where the nationalist hero Augusto Sandino was threatening American Marines. Tragedy in the British Mandate of Palestine, as Jews and Arabs clashed over control of these sites in Jerusalem. And in Antarctica, Commander Byrd was at his base camp, Little America, waiting for a break in the weather. His elaborately planned flight over the South Pole was still on ice. The newsreels had come into their own. Now, in living sound, patrons could keep abreast of the important events of the day.
The biggest news of the day is not the naval agreement, not even prohibition, but the return of the natural waistline.
The market opened in an absolutely free fall, and some people couldn't even get any bids for their shares, and it was wild panic. And an ugly crowd gathered outside the stock exchange, and it was described as making weird and threatening noises. It was indeed one of the worst days that had ever been seen down there.
There was a glimmer of hope on Black Thursday. Directly across from the New York Stock Exchange was a low, stately building, the House of Morgan. 22 years earlier, J. Pierpont Morgan had stopped the panic of 1907. October 24th, high noon. All eyes were now on acting head Thomas W. Lamont.
Tom Lamont called a number of the other bankers, like Charles Mitchell of the National City Bank, and people from the Bankers Trust, and the J. Albert Wigan of the Chase Bank, and so forth. There were about a half a dozen of them there. And they were gathered together to really discuss what they could do to stem this tremendous onslaught of selling stocks on the stock exchange that was taking place.
About 12:30, there was an announcement that this group of bankers would make available a very substantial sum to ease the credit stringency and support the market. And right after that, Dick Whitney made his famous walk across the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Richard Whitney, vice president of the exchange, was chosen by the bankers to be their representative. At 1:30 in the afternoon, at the height of the panic, he strode across the floor and in a loud, clear voice ordered 10,000 shares of U.S. Steel at a price considerably higher than the last bid. He then went from post to post, shouting buy orders for key stocks.
Stood up on one of the seats at the post, and he said, I give it 45 for 50,000 Standard Oil. And everybody started to applaud, oh, the crash is over. Because Morgan's putting his money in, maybe the crash is over.
And sure enough, there seemed to be evidence that the bankers had moved in to end the panic. And they did end it for that day. The market stabilized and even went up.
The New York Times said that thanks to the formation of this bankers pool, most observers felt that the panic and the great sell-off was over. And most people did feel that way. Tom Lamont felt that way.
But Monday was not good. apparently people had thought about things over the weekend, over Sunday, and decided maybe they might be safer to get out. And then came the real crash, which was on Tuesday, when the market went down and down and down without seeming limit.
October 29th. Morgan's bankers could no longer stem the tide. It was like trying to stop Niagara Falls. Everyone wanted to sell. AT&T down 50%. RCA, once $110 a share, couldn't find buyers at 26. Blue Ridge 100 plunged to $3 and still no buyers. On the floor, they had never seen anything like it.
When she told him that she had effected the move because she was sure that they had lost all their money, he told her that he had made more money that day than he had ever made before.
For most others, it was all over. In brokers' offices across the country, the small investors, the tailors, the grocers, the secretaries, stared at the moving ticker in numbed silence. Hope of an easy retirement, the new home, their children's education, everything was gone.
And then on Wednesday, the criminal cartel
New Year's Eve.
bought these fire sale corporations for pennies on the dollar.
Nobody knew that the Great Depression was coming. Unemployment, breadlines, bank failures. This was unimaginable.
Then good luck came a-knocking at my door.
But the bubble had burst.
Eyes were gray.
Gone was that innocent optimism, the confidence, the illusion of wealth without work. One era had ended. They toasted the coming of the 30s. But somewhere, deep down, they knew. The party was over.
Blue sky smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see.
I'm just trying to hammer home that the movies we see, the TV shows we watch, the magazines we read, the newspapers, the news we receive, is all controlled by a small group of dominant men who are intent upon gaining complete control of all aspects of human life, all resources, under a one-world, authoritarian, socialist government. This is the New World Order.
UN Agenda 21, bailouts, sellouts, Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, false flag, terror attacks, Bill Gates, Henry Kissinger, New World Order, mind control, Bank of America stealing homes with cut and paste mortgage loans, police, state, taser guns, FEMA camps, mad run, Monsanto rules the food supply while Big Pharma dopes your mind, prison system, profiteers, foundations, fund the fears, fund the evil through the years, the world's not as it appears. CIA smuggles drugs while Wachovia and Wells Fargo launder them, then give the proceeds to the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now the IRS takes money out of every single check. Money created out of thin air and leave you with debt. They want to make you a serf, a slave to their demand. They want to take your life in every way they can. Fluoride, GMO, vaccines, chemtrails, United Nations genocide. The world they show us is not real. This is how they kill and steal. Rothschild, Bundy, Rockefeller, Club of Rome. On the Georgia Guidestones it's written in stone. Cut through the matrix, awaken to the lies. Do not be hypnotized. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for